Grandma, so take us back to your teenage years living in Alberta neighborhood. There was a series of challenges you were faced with at a young age. Can you tell us more about that?
I lived on Ninth and Mason and went to King School, and then they decided to do the segregation where we would be bused out to a different school. So I ended up going to Wrigler, which was the first time I'd been outside of my neighborhood. So the busing process was pretty traumatic for me because just one day we got a letter sent home and it started. So riding on the bus, being out of my element, because I only knew from 9th up to 7th in Alberta to the school. So like I said, going to Wrigler was pretty different because I had been used to being around in an all-black school, and it was kind of difficult because I was stared at a lot. I think the teachers, it might have been like kind of a culture shock to have the black children coming in and teaching them. I was nervous a lot catching the bus because I didn't know anybody and I was really shy. So it was, like I said, it was kind of traumatic. And then even after going to Wrigler, I ended up having to go to Cleveland High School. So I had to catch the city bus, 2 city buses, matter of fact. So I had to stand on MLK and Mason. And at that time, that was considered the stroll for prostitution. So that was like very traumatic.
I would just say naturally, within the Black community, we've just been greatly displaced, and hair salons and barber shops are like the hub for the Black community because we still need to maintain, our aesthetics, our look, and our barbers and our hairstylists and the people that work in the shops are a great listening ear, and it's a good place to have camaraderie because you may not get to see those people or go to their homes quite frequently, but you know for sure that they're going to come for a weekly appointment, and shared stories come, from going to barbershops such as Terrell Brandon's, and laughter is had, and you can just be yourself. It's a welcoming environment, and in particular, growing up in high school, I know that's a place where my cousin would quite frequent with his friends, and it's a pride and an ownership thing where, especially having a Black man having a Black-owned business on Alberta was just kind of really great. Yeah.
So my older sisters had my twin and I, they took us to clubs. Geneva's one, and the gas room was another one. So at the age of 15, I was being sneaked into a club and drinking back in the corner in the dark. I started out at a pretty young age drinking, and then again, like I said, I was bused out to Cleveland High School. So when I would wait at the bus stop, I'd get harassed by tricks that were driving down the street looking for a woman to prostitute. So that was traumatic. Going to school, there was a place called The Hill, and they would sell drugs there. So someone brought drugs to school, and I ran track. So I was able to leave school and I go to my friend's house to do my homework. And I went one evening and we went downstairs. We'd always go downstairs and watch TV or listen to music and do our homework, and then we just sit there and kick it for a while, and then I would catch the bus home. So my friend, I was a freshman, she was a senior. So she ended up introducing me to her boyfriend's best friend. And he was 22 at the time, I believe, and I was 16. And I remember her saying, "Here, take this pill, it'll make you feel better." And I took it and fell asleep, I believe, is what happened, or passed out. And the next thing I did, I woke up and he was on top of me, and I didn't have, my pants were down, and he had raped me. So I became pregnant. I was devastated because in my family, my grandmother helped raise me, and she was a Christian, and a missionary. So for a child to be pregnant at 16 years old was not a good thing. So there was shame, guilt. I was afraid I was going to get beat for doing it, which made me hide it. So I hid the pregnancy for 9 months and ended up delivering the child up at White Shield, which is, well, actually I delivered the child at OHSU, but White Shield is where I ended up staying my last, like 6 weeks of the pregnancy, and then I delivered the child. So that was very traumatic for me. So I would say late 80s, early 90s, there was a wave of gang members coming up from California, and they in turn brought the drugs with them. And I think the drugs were basically dropped into the northeast part of town. And growing up, powdered cocaine was the big thing, and then it ended up becoming rocked up, and that's how I got the name crack. It was like a rock, and you smoked it. So that was like the beginning of the end for anybody that ever tried the drug, because what it instantly did when you did it was you felt nothing. So if you had a problem before you did it and you did it, the problem didn't exist. It was like something I could not even explain. Sort of like my ears just went deaf and I couldn't hear anything. And from that point on, it's very addicting. So, you know, it was something I needed every day, had to have it. And I just feel like the government played a big part in allowing it to come into, you know, our state and city, so that it was a distraction and it was something that would take anybody that used it off track. It's like your life would never be the same again.
And for me, as I witnessed my mom going through the addiction, as I've said before, it's a true demise of a family and a community, where you just see a person sometimes at fast pace, but it's slowly but surely, it just takes everything, every fiber, every being of that person from them. They lose their job, their homes, their souls, their families, and it really just corrupts the fabric of a family. And it separates from the child to the mom, to the grandma, to the aunts, to the cousins, and nobody really has a true grasp or understanding of the impact of what drugs and alcohol does to not just an individual, but the family, the community, the society. And I was really angry through that process, because I just couldn't figure out what it really was, what addiction was, or why my mom wasn't getting the help that she needed. And so it is life-changing, and it's great that they have programs such as Narcotics Anonymous and Project Network, where you know, having that cultural specific care really makes a difference. And I think that's what ultimately saved my mom's life. I've seen other people that have gone through the programs or that she used with, that to this day they're not clean, they're not sober, and so their families are still hurting, they're still broken. And I feel fortunate enough for those programs, and I feel like it's a godly intervention, because once addiction takes a hold of you and your family, it's something that truly is hard to, it never goes away. So you just have to learn to live with the disease, and then from a person that witnessed it and had the backlash from it, accept it and forgive that process.
I would just like to say that I was very, very hurt, because what happened when crack was kind of dropped in the communities, there was no real, how can I say it, there was no real urgency to do anything about it. But when meth came on the scene, they began to figure out, oh my God, we've got to hurry up and do something about this. And it seemed to impact the Southeast, maybe Southwest, areas of town. And it seemed like within probably 3 to 6 months after it became a problem with statistics and outcomes being shown, that they had treatment centers open, they had helplines going. So I just felt like there was a long pause for getting help when crack came versus meth.
So did you do crack because of like your past? Was it to like what was it like from like all that's happened in your life? Is that why, like to numb it or something? Or was it that?
What I can say is getting raped and being pregnant at 16 years old was one of the most devastating things in my life. And when I went up to OHSU to deliver the child, there was nobody that looked like me on staff. Matter of fact, the nurses were like in their maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, and they were talking outside my room, and I'm sitting in there laboring, having contractions. And back then it was called a saddle block, which meant that your legs went in some stirrups and they're spread apart, and then they take a tool, so to speak, and put it around the baby's head and they pull it out instead of having an epidural like they do today, or they numb you from the waist down. So I was feeling all that pain, and then I had 98 stitches. So I just felt like, and the women were out in the hall saying, you know, she probably doesn't know who the dad is, and where's the father, where's her parents, where's her support? And you would think they would come in there and try to console me, but that part didn't happen. So with being pregnant, living with an alcoholic mom, going to school out of my neighborhood, and being pressured at the bus stop to turn a date at 16 years old, you know, those things, coupled with just having my dad out of my life, not having my parents together, the struggle, my mom on welfare, that took me to a place where the drugs was a means of just making me forget all that. It numbed me.
Yeah.
It took away the pain. So unfortunately, there was major consequences to go along with that.
What it was like, it was a very lonely and traumatic experience. One that, you know, I still to this day process, because being the oldest child, I was responsible for my younger siblings, and I knew that I wanted to finish, you know, school. I wanted to finish elementary school. I wanted to finish middle school and high school. And through those years of learning, you know, my mom was on dope. And what that means is you're away from home. Sometimes it could be a day, it could be weeks. And so we would oftentimes not have food, running water, or electricity. And I just remember calling Zero, the operator, just because I just wanted someone to talk to. And my family was kind of alienated at that time because, you know, my mom had this addiction, so she was considered the black sheep of the family. And so because she was my mom, I was also kind of abandoned. So, but through these experiences, it's definitely made me a stronger person today. And I'm not angry for the things that I've had to experience, because I know, and I was able to learn that it was the addiction. So.
Okay, so.
I just want to say that this is really different. Having my granddaughter here, and it doesn't bother me that she's asking the questions, but just seeing that, I'm glad that I was able to break this generational curse of the drug addiction and mental health, and at least addressing things that keep families torn apart, you know, for so long. So, you know, it's not sadness, all sadness. It's really kind of tears of joy to know that she has the opportunity. None of my grandchildren have seen me loaded or drunk or under the influence of drugs, and that's, you know, that's a major accomplishment. So
I know when I was growing up, as far as mental health, it was like the words were, oh, that person's crazy, or the word insane asylum, the crazy house, which was in Salem. So with those types of things to describe what mental illness is, you would not have to wonder why somebody wouldn't want to go get help, because to say you're crazy is not something that it's to be proud of. So I think that, and when I was growing up, the family secrets where you don't talk about those types of things, you don't tell anybody. I had an aunt that would cut her wrists, and you would think wrist cutting just really started being talked about. Probably I heard first about it maybe 10, 15 years ago, but even back, my aunt is 89 years old now, and she would cut her wrists back in her day. So, you know, it's been around for a long time. I think that because it's a hush-hush type of illness in the Black community, and it's not something that they want to talk about, and being on medication, a lot of people have stigmas around that. I think most recently they've had African American therapists that have been able to counsel people, and that's opened the door for more people to want to go get the help that's necessary.
So when you're in the hospital, you had like no support at all, right?
No, I was taken into a room. Well, go figure now. You have suites that you deliver babies in. So all I remember, OHSU is an old hospital. It's the county hospital. So people can go there that have no insurance. So pretty much the walls were dirty, or looked dirty to me, crack paint on the walls. So that just the look of the room was depressing. And then I was in there with the bed, probably the size of a twin bed maybe. And nobody there. You know, I ended up calling my stepmom to come up, or I had the hospital call her and tell her that I was delivering, but they pretty much just left me in there to labor by myself. And I was in labor for 20 some hours. The baby weighed 9 pounds, 8 ounces. So instead of giving me an episiotomy, they just let me rip. I had 98 stitches after the baby was born. And again, like I said, they use saddle blocks, which is, they put an instrument around the baby's head and they pull it out. And he was huge. That would have warranted a C-section in this day and time. So I don't think I got any pain meds, because I don't remember not feeling any pain. Nothing went away. So in a way, I felt like, one, I delivered a child that I gave up for adoption and had to deliver it with no support, no help, nothing to take the pain away. And then after that, you know, I was in a hospital that showed no, my pride, my dignity, all that stuff was ripped from me. And they just didn't care, you know. So that had me be a bitter child after that, you know. That was a lot to hold in and hold on to in my early adulthood.
And did they help, like, you know how you gave them up for adoption? So did they help, like, did you do all that by yourself, or did the hospital?
Well, I had it prearranged, actually, because White Shield is a place that you go and you can live there if you're pregnant, if you don't have anywhere else to go. And I chose to go there because my mom was an alcoholic and she was very verbally abusive and physically, so I didn't want her to harm me while I was pregnant. So I stayed up there and at White Shield, and then they just drove me up to the hospital when they knew I was in labor. So, you know, it was prearranged. They ended up, the adoption agency came, they let me see the baby and hold it briefly, and then he was taken away.
Okay, so when you were seeking help for addiction and mental health services, so, because I know how they are now, but like back then, so was there not, like when you did seek for them, did it not help you? Like, honestly, like, did it not?
Oh, I would go to the emergency room and try to explain to them. I didn't know what was going on. I'm scared. Now I know it was anxiety, panic attacks, depression, bipolar. So now there's names and diagnoses and numbers to go by all that. But back then, you go to the emergency room and they're looking for, do you have a pain here or there? Is something broken? It's not, anything that pertains to the brain, so to speak. So unless you're fighting them or being combative, or you're talking about killing yourself, and those are key words these days. If you say you're going to kill yourself, you're going to be found in a psych ward somewhere. And there's better services now, but back then, it's like I was crying out for help and nobody heard me or saw what I was trying to do.
So basically,
The help I was trying to get, yeah.
I didn't really know what alcoholism was or what depression was. I just knew what it looked like. I didn't know what the name was, or that there could be help, or that it wasn't something necessarily normal. So what led up to me calling was I was in my 8th grade year and I wanted to graduate from middle school on time, and my mom had just given birth to twins. And so at the time, there was myself and 3 other younger siblings, and then a set of twins or whatever. And so my mom had left and she had been gone for a few days, and we only had 1 more can of milk left. And so in the past, I was able to kind of like make things work with like farina or noodles or bologna sandwiches, but I was like, I can't make Enfamil. So I knew the system, and that if I was there, they wouldn't pick up the kids because I was 13 or 14. And so I went to school, and I had one of my younger sisters call me once the last can of milk was gone. And so, Mr. Feller called CSD on my behalf because, my sister called the school, and that's when we were put into foster care for a period of time. Working in healthcare now, I am able to be, I hope, a beacon of light to patients or members that need someone to advocate for them, someone to listen to them and actually hear what their concerns are. And sometimes it's strictly health, and sometimes it's things that are associated with social detriment needs. And so right now what I'm working to do is to create a place where people can come and feel safe and comfortable and sharing what their needs are regarding their healthcare needs, and not be afraid to say, I have depression, or I may need to think about taking medication, or I'm pregnant and I'm alone and I'm not sure really what I want to do with this pregnancy. And just really make them feel comfortable and know that they have a voice in the type of care that they would like to receive, as well as building awareness with the providers and our leadership, and saying, hey, you can't ignore this population, because if we are for everybody, then we need to absolutely make sure that we have cultural specific care needs that are met, and programs that are funded, and community partnerships where we can bring everybody together and really provide solid, holistic health care. I think so. I think it has a lot to do with, I didn't really want to do healthcare. I'd rather be in banking, or I thought that was what my path was supposed to be. And every job that I've had, everybody used to say, you should be a social worker. You should. And I was like, I don't want to be a social worker. I mean, I remember my social worker, she was great, but I didn't want to like drive people around and go to court. But I feel like the career that I'm in, it just kind of spoke to me and found me. I didn't realize that I was going to have such great connections or see myself in different people. Even, working with kids and being able to say, hey, you could go to college. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember someone saying nobody had ever asked me that. And I was just like, that's crazy. And so just, you know, being able to uplift people and give them a sense of hope and direction and be pure and genuine about it, it saves people's lives. And I realized, I said, oh, I'm only gonna just help this one patient this one time. I don't know if I have it in me, or even if it's something that I can actually do. But when you do something and you see that it works, you want to continue to replicate that process. And so that's just what I've been doing. That's really what's been keeping me going, and being able to be there for someone else when I felt like I didn't have that through my transitions in life have fueled the work that I do.
I am at a place where I have accomplished raising my children, and everyone's grown. But what I know is that a mother's work is never done. And, you know, I feel Samir came to my NA birthday on Monday, and he said that being that there wasn't a father figure for him, that I'm his mom, his mentor, his best friend. So that's saying a lot coming from a male that's 28 years old, that your mom's your best friend, but we can talk about anything. And that's new for me, because my mom never told me that she loved me until I was 39 years old and she was drunk. So, you know, I've not only broken the cycle with addiction and all of that, but, you know, it took so much out of me to tell you guys that I loved you growing up, because I never got that. So, I mean, it means a lot to me to be able to verbalize those types of things, because I know that it really makes a difference for a child to hear that, you know. And I've just tried to do everything opposite of what my mom and my dad gave me, you know, to the best of my ability. I mean, I want to see this generation be successful, be prosperous. I don't want my kids or grandchildren in the penitentiary, incarcerated. I want them to feel like the sky's the limit. And I know that for me, I have to do self-care, and I have to be able to manage, you know, my life and my recovery in order to be a whole person. And now I feel like, you know, I was broken at one point in my life, and now I feel like I've put myself back together. There's dreams and aspirations that I still have that I haven't accomplished. And, you know, seeing you and Samon or Mia grow up has been, I don't even know the words to describe it, but just knowing that you graduated from high school, you're in college, those are things that I didn't get to do and didn't really see in my family growing up. So it's like, this is the new norm, and it's a good thing. And my prayer is that you guys don't have to ever use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism. You know, you can talk to your mom, you can talk to me, you can talk to a professional, but just don't feel like drugs or alcohol has to be the answer to anything that you're going through. Monday, February 26th, I had 21 years clean and sober. And that's a milestone. I looked at that day as I've never done anything in my life for 21 years straight and accomplished it. So with that said, you know, recovery is a one day at a time process. So every day that I wake up and go to bed clean, wake up the next morning, you know, it's like a miracle for me, because 21 years is a long time to do anything the right way. I mean, I'm not perfect in any way, but I've managed to wake up clean and sober for 21 years, and that's huge for me.
What makes my mom royalty is her perseverance in being a mom, not just a mother now, to all of her children, and making amends, and spreading her wings and just sharing her heart and passion and compassion for others. when you walk into NA meetings, everybody,
Where's
you're
she?
the queen. They're like, whoa, who is that lady?
Right.
What celebrity is she? And just it's not just beauty on the outside, but on the inside as well. You are very giving of your time, of your expertise. I mean, I see you as an attorney, a legal assistant, getting people to where they need to be in life, and not shaming them or making them feel that they're inadequate. And your superpower is definitely the ability to draw people to you, and through the process, and live again despite the past, making again, not letting that define who you are today. And I think that's really a difficult thing for people to do, to turn away from the pain of the past and then make a decision, I'm going to live differently today. I'm going to be and do differently today. And you've produced some pretty great kids that want to help change the world, and grandkids that truly look up to you. So thank you for your sobriety. Thank you for turning it around and being the beacon of light you are today.
I'm so happy that I don't look like what I've been through. Oh my God. If I could just say that, I could, yeah, that's saying a lot.
Okay, so Grandma, when you go to your NA meetings, and my mom, she's talking about how like everybody worships you. There's some people who have just came in and been off drugs for like 3 days or maybe like an hour or something. What do you tell them, or what would you tell them so they can like not be like you, but like, be as strong as you, and so like they won't? Because you know how you talked about how addiction is like something that's like it's hard to get out of. So like, what would you tell them?
So there's a saying in recovery that the newcomer is the most important person in the room, and that is, for me, that is so very true, because my 21 years could go away tomorrow. It could go away when I walk out this door. If I get a thought in my head that's like, oh, you need to go have a drink, that would be devastating for me and the family, So the fact that I've made up in my mind that I don't want to do that anymore is great for me. But a newcomer or somebody new coming into recovery, they're fragile, and I always greet them with a hug or ask them, are they hungry? You want a cup of coffee? Just something to get a connection with them, and then pass off my phone number and tell them they can call me, check in with me. So you have to show them some love, and you have to, maybe sometimes I'll tell a story, to give them some hope, because they want instant gratification most of the time, but you have to put your work in. So I think that's the best way I could explain how to get someone to commit.
I definitely think that I use my experiences as a drawing board, and it creates the empathy and the compassion needed, because some people, they just really cannot relate to what it's like to be hungry or worry about putting food on the table versus paying rent or getting your electricity paid. And so I think probably a little bit more compassion and understanding for people that are experiencing poverty than most. And so I also believe I have an innate ability to connect with people, and just sincerely and genuinely want to help make changes necessary to improve their lives. And so I really don't know. I think God just kind of put it on my heart to do what I do.